Mm. Mm. Oh, country sausage. Hi eaters, I'm Randall Burg, the He-Man Chef, and today I'm going to teach you, He-Man, how to make homemade country sausage. You will never ever buy sausage in the store again. It's so easy, it's terrific tasting, you'll have a ton of it in your house ready to eat. So He-Man cooks, this is what you buy in the market. This is 4.7 pounds of pork butt. And what I'm going to do is when I open the package, I always wash it first, lightly dry it, and then I trim all of this fat off. You don't need a lot of fat in your sausage. Fast sausage I make is almost fatless, not quite, but when you cook it, there's virtually no fat left in the pan. This is what you want. So I've washed the pork butt and I've dried it off, and now I'm ready to trim the fat off of it. This is extremely important to trim as much fat as you can. So we've got all of this fat and it all has to be removed. Be careful what you do. This is a rasp kind of cutter, and it kind of just pulls the fat back. There's many different ways. Watch your fingers. Be cognizant of where that blade is at all times. This is really tough fat to get off, and you got to just get it off. You don't want to fool around with the fat. There's other ways. A knife like this, you can trim it this way, and sometimes it's easier. You take small strokes and you get that fat away, and you just keep trimming that stuff away, and I put it back in this dish when I'm finished, and that's what I'm going to discard. So I've trimmed this much fat already off it. Now we're going to get all the chunks in layers here. You don't want to eat this stuff. This is not good for you, and it doesn't add to the flavor. So instead of one giant slice, you do lots of small slices, and it's just super easy to trim all of that fat off. So get in there, pull the meat apart, pull the bone off it, and finish trimming all of this fat. So now what you want to do is separate the meat from the bone. This particular cut has a bone in it, and I'm going to show you the technique I use to separate the meat from the bone. So here's the bone. And I take a very thin blade, pull the meat back, and just slightly scrape it, and it pulls the meat away from the bone. Be very careful where your fingers are, and as you can see, it just slowly comes off that bone in a lovely little piece. You have to get to know your knife, you have to feel your meat, then understand the easiest way to pull it off from the bone. Okay, so I've trimmed the bone out of the meat, and I've trimmed the fat off it. There's a lot of fat. You don't want to be eating this fat. So I've trimmed it, and now what I'm doing is slice the meat up in chunks and put it in the meat grinder. So now you want to cut your meat into chunks that will go in your food processing machine. We use a Kenmore meat grinding machine. So you want it in chunks, so it'll fit down the throat of the device. It's always very, very important. You can use a knife like this and just muscle it along. You got chunks here. Get all those chunks sliced up and get them ready to go in the machine. What I do is, instead of a single hard slice down, I do a series of slices. That's the best way. If you bear down hard, you might slip and take off a finger. And come on, what's a He-Man with only 9 fingers? Gotta have all 10 fingers. And you just make your meat into chunks or long slices that will go down the throat of that meat grinder. So all you He-Man cooks, so here's your chunks. I've taken the entire 4.7 pounds of pork, trimmed it, taken the bone off, and cut it up into chunks, and now we're ready to go into our Kenmore machine. Here's our Kenmore machine. It's a multi-purpose mixing, chopping, grinding kind of machine. It comes with a series of attachments. This is the basic meat attachment, and you have to put the drill bit, I call it the drill bit, into the machine all the way. First you put your cutter blade on it. So you put the cutter blade on, and this is different diameters. I like mine coarse, so this is country kind because it's a coarse chop for the meat, and then you put a lock on it. This goes into your Kenmore machine, and there's a little notch and you twist a little bit so your auger is locked into place, and then you put your lock in, and you are ready to make sausage. Now this machine has a tilt control. I take the bowl off and I move the bowl into position. This is the tool used not only to loosen the attachment, but it goes inside here for cramming your meat into the machine. So there's a speed control over here, and you can run the machine at different speeds. I like to use a fairly slow to medium speed, not a high speed, and just gently let the meat be processed and pushed through the system. It gives it a really interesting grainy texture. So I'm going to start putting meat in the machine, and we're going to make sausage. So the machine is on. It's starting to come out right here. That's your sausage. And you gently push meat into the auger, and it pushes it through the cutting head. Simple. It's classic He-Man stuff. So that's pretty much it for grinding the sausage. You can see this lovely texture. So now it's time to add the He-Man spices to your He-Man sausage. So I love parsley, I love sage, fennel makes it extraordinary, as does rosemary. And I always put a little Himalayan salt in it. It just gives you that je ne sais quoi flavor. So I'm not really accurate of what I do. I just kind of eyeball pour it. Some people use teaspoons and measuring, but you know, this is not a science, it's an art to get the right flavor. So first I'm going to pour in some of this great Himalayan salt. I'm now putting in rosemary, and I put in about 10 fat dashes of rosemary. This is your parsley. Put lots of parsley, gives it a really base flavor. Sage is the key for this sausage. Gives it a very strong, free-range kind of flavor. I just sprinkle in a whole bunch of sage, and I finish up with fennel. Fennel is an extraordinary spice, and I love fennel with sausage. So you pour in, who knows how much that is, about a tablespoon, and then you mix it up. So we've got the spices, now we're going to mix it. Some chefs use their hands, some use a spoon. I kind of round it and smash it and just play with it to make sure all the spices are nicely mixed. This is classic He-Man stuff, mixing and smashing and mixing and smashing, and get all the ingredients. And one way you can tell if it's uniformly mixed is look at the distribution of parsley. If the parsley's still in clumps, it's not uniformly mixed. It's a guy thing, I know, but it looks like we've got completely finished sausage ready for either eating or storing. Storing the sausage is as important as making the sausage. You have to decide what kind of accessibility you want. So you can store your fresh sausage a couple different ways. I eat it pretty quickly, so sometimes I'll just store it right in here in the refrigerator, put a plastic sheet over it. Sometimes I'll break it up into smaller containers, put some in the refrigerator, some in the freezer. Sometimes I'll make them into patties, put them on a wax sheet and store those in a bag in the refrigerator, and some in the freezer, some for future use, some for present use. But what I'm going to do now is store it and then take some and make fresh sausage so we can taste it now. When you cook, there always has to be an effort-reward formula. Put a lot of effort in, what's the reward? Well, to me the reward is eating the stuff, tasting the sausage. I want my reward immediately, not days later or minutes or hours later. So I'm going to cook some of my fresh He-Man sausage right now. Now here are the tools. We got our pot, and we have our sausage and a scoop. So now we're going to slap that pot down and slam some sausage in it and grill it. Bam! Depending on the shape you like, you just kind of form it into a rough, nothing of a sausage shape. We're cooking, so you take another slammer and slam it down and smash it a bit and shape it. You want a random, odd shape. The edges become crunchy goodnesses little islands of goodness in a continent of sausage, right? So you let these guys, you know, really do their thing. The thinner it is, the quicker it cooks. And you'll see how little fat comes off the sausage now that we've made He-Man sausage. So you're getting your reward, instantaneous reward. I'm cooking the sausage. I'm almost drooling because I'm anticipating all the crunchy, juicy, hot goodness exploding in my mouth, increasing my virility, kind of thing that He-Man do. Man with spatula is very attractive to women. They can't resist a He-Man with a spatula. Have you ever had sausage with no fat? There's no fat in here. As you can see from the sausage in the pan, there's virtually no fat at all coming off it. This is almost a health food. I know it's an oxymoron, but pork is much healthier than beef because if you trim the fat, it's a white meat with low fat content. And as I showed you in the pot, I'm cooking the heck out of it, and there's zero fat. I use no oil to cook it. It's in a Teflon pan. This stuff is good. Here's the cooked sausage. You see any fat anywhere? Unbelievable. So I'm going to eat some. Can't wait. This is the reward for the effort. The He-Man moment, the reward. This is it. This is the stuff. We're going to eat some of this stuff. Oh, country sausage. Oh, It's crunchy. You got a texture. It's full of juicy goodness. There's almost no fat. It's a rough country cut. Feels good in your mouth. It goes down little plops. Guys, this is He-Man sausage. Cooking for a He-Man. I'm Randall Burg. Enjoy your sausage.